like to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please read the statement?
This is a meeting of the Township Council for Friday, February 15th. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided to the public and the press on February 8th, 2019, and was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Roll call.
Excuse me. The purpose of this meeting, because this special meeting, is to discuss budget presentations. Official action may be taken.
Roll call.
Councilmember Ooms?
Here.
Councilmember Kadish is not present. Councilmember Van Tassel?
Here.
Councilmember Allberger?
Here.
Council President Murphy?
Here. Please rise to salute the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going, we just need to open to the public. Can I have a motion to open to public?
Motion.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Claire.
Is there anyone from the public? Do you want the one directly?
Yeah, couldn't-
Is there anyone from the public that would like to step forward? Please do so.
Thank you. Thanks.
Seeing no one? Motion to close? to public?
Motion. Motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Yeah, great, thank you. Just Claire.
Better. So, first up is Recreation Senior, the Senior Center, Michelle Downtain. Your budget, so.
Ready? Okay, we'll start with the Community Affairs Department. You want me to just read down the list?
Sure.
Okay, salaries, 42,400. Office supplies, 500. Educational conference seminars, 2,000. Materials and supplies, $750. Service contracts, 45,000. Programs, 9,000. Memberships and publications, $650. Equipment rental, 10,000. And a line item for mileage, $500.
We're just reading through. We just received these.
Okay, yep, no, oh wait, and then if you have any questions, we can do that, and then I'll move on to seniors.
So the service contract, that's with PAL?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes.
And the equipment rental, still the porta potties, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've been able to bring that down quite a bit, so that's good.
So,
I do want to let you know, sorry, just an amendment. I meant to erase something under the employees, the explanation that says part-time aide. We had discussed it in our prior meetings, and we're removing that line. So I removed the line, but I didn't remove the narrative portion where it says part-time aide. So there's no part-time aide request.
there is none.
Yeah, I think we removed, I think we removed that
Yeah, there's no
out of-
line there,
We
so.
removed that out of, I think, the ordinance.
Yeah, it's just in the,
Yeah, but I'm thinking we
Wording.
removed that, I think we removed that out of the ordinance.
Oh, really?
Last year.
oh, I don't know.
I'd have to look back.
I don't remember that part.
So you were saying?
So what programs do you have in mind? Because it looks as if last year we paid 4,000 roughly for
Yes.
programs, and now this year it's proposed at 9,000? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
So what's going to
Well-
change there?
Okay, so we're trying to work with other groups to bring more things into the community because everything that we've brought so far has been so widely received. So right now we have, we collaborate and take part in Earth Fest. We just had a snowshoe event. We're going to have a bike and kite day over in the Wildlife Refuge as soon as I can get that worked on. And then we do, Vernon Day is in coordination with the PAL and as well as the trunk or treat and tree lighting. And then we're doing a turkey trot. We're going to set up some trips because feedback from the community is that they used to have trips organized through recreation and they don't anymore. So we're going to start to put that back out into the community as well. We're going to start a hiking program for people to get out there on the trails and support everything that we're trying to do and everything we have here.
So the,
Quite a bit.
okay, so the 4,000 roughly is for all the standard stuff, like the Halloween and your turkey trot. I mean, that's what must have cost us last year?
Yes,
Or are
the
those
4,000 that I spent was, right, through creative resourcing, being able to bring what we have brought. Oh, and Movies in the Park was something we brought last year as well with the Arts Committee that we're looking to bring back too, and also the Sidewalk Art Festival.
So those would be all new things that are incorporated in the
Yes.
$9,000?
Yeah, we kind of just touched on them a little bit last year, so they were a success and welcomed. So now we would like to expand on them to bring more. Mhm.
Okay. So that's an increase there.
The one thing that I've mentioned once before is that, actually, it's near the Wildlife Preserve. I mentioned that they had received grants from the federal government for their porta potties, but their actual buildings. And I had mentioned that before because I don't know if there's anybody that's available to look at it, but just something, maybe even one of the council members wants to look. But
Over by Owen Station Road, right?
they have it by Owen Station. They also.
I've seen them there.
Yeah, yeah, because I drove there just to.
To look at them.
To see what they look like, and they're just they're little buildings, and then what they do is they just.
Outhousey looking, right? Like outhousey looking?
Well, yeah, they're
But
just.
nice.
They're little square buildings, so this way, what happens is the companies, they'll come up and they'll pump it out, but you don't have the porta john standing there.
Right, but it's more eye appeal.
Yeah, it's a little building, but it was actually one of the employees from the Wildlife Preserve that told me that a couple years ago, that they applied for the grant themselves and received it. So they have Owen Station. I think they have it right by their main building, too, in the back.
So you think that's something we should look into
I
as well?
was just thinking, maybe at down at the fields, like at Maple Grange, if we were able to have a small building down on the bottom instead of porta johns, it would keep from having the
It would
buildings.
look much better,
It
absolutely.
would look better,
Yeah.
but,
No, I'll
then-
make a note to look for that, and I'll talk with the people at the Wildlife Refuge to see what grants they did.
Yeah, because they had it, and it's, like I said, it just might look nicer,
Oh, it definitely
too,
would.
rather than,
The membership and publication line, it looks as if it's been $50 for several years. So now, this year, it's $6.50.
Right, because there's certain things through NRPA and National Hiking Society that if we are members of them, then we get discounted rates and for different educational seminars to learn more, to be able to bring more, and also opening up to different grant opportunities and funding opportunities that they give just to the members.
So what, do you have to increase this to get
Well,
those
to-
discounts? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we have to become members,
Oh, okay, so you're not members.
right.
Do you think the discounts will pay for itself?
Yes. Oh, definitely. If we're able to sign up for different webinars and seminars and take part in them and have the opportunity to look into different grants that we would qualify for, oh, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, grants can be huge for.
How come we didn't do this in the past? Why this year? I'm just curious. 'cause
Well,
it looks
last
like
year,
every we didn't.
the more involved I became with everything, with my position, the more I learned about different things that could bring us more funding and give us more opportunities. So that's why I'm presenting it now, so we can take part in it.
Okay.
I do want to point out, in Michelle's budget, because you had mentioned about programs, while we did increase to the 9,000, if you look at the equipment and rental, that did decrease because Michelle's really been on top of the porta potties and the contracts for those. The moment that they don't need them, she immediately cancels them, so it's a good savings there. So that money kind of got redirected elsewhere, and they're actually it's $50, but it's a $50 decrease across their O&E line.
Thank you.
So, and in the salaries, the salary is budgeted between the senior and recreation.
Yes.
So this increase is majority, I'm just looking to see what the difference is. Like, was it split? This proposed increase is split between the two, or is it?
Yes, there's an increase on both sides.
And what is that increase?
The increase would be from my salary to put me in accordance with other municipalities and per the civil service job title and the work that is performed, and also for the 2 part-time people in the senior center in accordance with what they do also.
Okay, so what will your increase be?
Mine would be 58. That would be the total.
5,800?
No, that would be the total salary, 58,000.
And you're at what now?
45.
So you want to increase the salary to 58?
Yes.
Okay, and what about the aides? What are their salary at now?
Jane is at 17.87, I believe, per hour, and this would increase her to $20 per hour. And Carol is at 10.32 per hour, I believe, at the moment, and this would increase her to 12.
And don't we receive some of that money back from the county?
Yes, when I go through onto the senior page.
Right, okay, so that's, I just wanted,
Yep.
since Councilmember Holmes asked that, I just wanted to mention it at the same time.
Yep,
that
no,
some of that
absolutely.
is offset by the county
This-
reimbursements.
Right.
Yeah, the nutrition
Right.
site contract.
So you're looking at a $13,000 raise.
Yes. Anyone else?
And any other any questions on recreation?
Okay, so then we'll go to the seniors. And salaries, we just touched on a little bit, so that new line would be 22.9. Office supplies, $500. Equipment, $2,500. Educational,
The next, I'm sorry, that was just the next tab. So,
Oh, okay,
Tab
sorry.
21. Or 20, yep, 21. Sorry, go ahead.
okay?
Thank you. No, thank you.
All right, education, $100. Service contracts, $50,000, same as it has been, and that's for the transportation contract with the county. And then programs as well, $9,000. We had a meeting with the county, and our attendance has increased so much that they're not able to offer back reimbursements as much as they had in the past because they need to cover the costs on their end to match our attendance. So to be able to keep doing the same programs that we have been doing, we need to put a little bit more in for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for everybody's reference, the busing, anything over 50,000,
Yes.
the county pays.
The county pays, which we almost, for ridership last year, almost reached $100,000.
Okay.
Let me see. The total for the year was 94,000, 93,968. Oh, wait, actually, that doesn't include December, so we were just under, like I said. So we basically use double what we pay with our ridership for our seniors that we provide.
Well, it's good to see that it's, like I said,
Oh,
yeah,
the senior center is, it's expanding.
yeah.
Yeah, the population is expanding, and they like the services they receive, so they come, and more people are coming, so it's good, it's a nice
Yeah.
thing.
The seniors are not moving.
No, no.
That's what's happening is, even some people mention like less cars on the road, but a lot of people have retired and stayed. So,
Oh, yeah, no, definitely, or they're moving back to move in with their children who are adults but still here in Vernon. The senior population is definitely growing. So, and as Donnell had pointed out, we took out the request for the part-time aide for my department. So that just keeps the bulk of the work on me. Any questions?
Do you recall what the previous director made back in 2000?
When she left, I believe her salary was just over 64,000, not counting also having me as a full-time aide.
I think we covered all that last year
Yeah.
extensively in our meetings. Because we also have to remember that we transferred more money to PAL.
We did,
Right.
and they're working with their programs, and now that has enabled us to increase
Right.
more programs and services. So we're just growing with the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, just for a minute, go, if you go to your tab for the capital, I'm hoping to be able to,
How is that?
It's number 28.
28.
Oh.
I've worked with Donnell in great detail about the condition of the turf fields at Maple Grange and how we can
Can
look
I
to.
interrupt you for 1 minute, please? Yeah, this is a very touchy subject for me because I want it on the record that I have a business in town that have had Mad Dog Lacrosse and now field hockey since like 1998. We do rent these fields. We pay for these fields. I've tried to stay away with this because as a customer, I don't want allegations or perception of conflict of interest on this. So when Michelle and Chuck have discussed this, I've kept myself out of this. Michelle, I'll say the reasons why they have to be replaced. I've resisted this now for 3 years since I've taken office. And if the council desires, I'll recuse myself and leave the room now if you desire on the discussion of the turf fields. It's up to you.
Well, how much money do you make
Well,
from
I
renting
think,
out?
I think that was first the question. Does anybody,
If you want me to recuse
have a
myself, I'll
problem.
recuse
No,
myself.
no.
But I just want you to know, I do rent these fields. If it becomes a problem even, then we'll have to move our business out of Vernon, where we are in the summers, and we'll have to go with another.
Yeah, I was
But I
gonna
just want you to know that.
that was another subject I think that's been discussed.
I know,
that-
but
yeah,
I just
that-
want it out there that you all are aware of it and the public's aware of it, that I do rent these fields.
So the
Out
fields,
of the trust?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Are you taking the money out of the trust for this?
For the deposit. For the deposit, we have the money in a trust that would cover to have the upper two fields replaced, which by doing them at the same time just makes sense because it's, they're right next to each other. They were put in at the same time, they're deteriorating at the same time. And for the company, it gives us a better cost
So
to
you're
do.
taking 80,000, that's just the deposit?
That's just the deposit, yes.
So why, I mean, how much money do you make off these fields?
Okay,
We-
so I don't know, because I have the revenue numbers.
Go ahead.
We're bringing in on average, on the low end, 5,000 a year. That's the low end, because some of the past few years, we've run on well over that. That goes into a reserve for the field fees for recreation in their trust account. The intent there, I believe, all the money that's sitting there was to be used for something like this, so that when the fields do need to be replaced, you do have enough money to put down for a good down payment on that. We went over all of the trust accounts. There are a lot of individual items in there. I spoke with the auditor about how to anticipate that money. I spoke with Trenton about how to anticipate that money in this year's budget. So if you do look at the budget, you'll see that money anticipated as a revenue from the trust funds to take care of the down payment on those fields.
And then to
Michelle can
rebuild
talk.
it.
Yes, and Michelle can talk to you more about the deterioration of the fields and the GMAX test that we just had, which speaks to the importance of
Right,
having them
it's
done.
becoming a safety concern because they are past their life by 2 to 3 years. So we've been very tenderly maintaining them. But any repairs now, even with the service companies hand shearing the new turf with scissors, it doesn't match because the pile is so deteriorated on the existing turf. So between the first GMAX test that we did a year and a half, 2 years ago, and one I did last year, the ratings went up 30 points to the maximum amount. It's a bounce test. So they pick different parts of the fields literally and do a bounce test. So at that rate, by the end of this year, potentially, we're going to have to close fields. And the reason we don't have more income, revenue off of them is because our community uses them 7 days a week, all year long. So based on safety stance, and it's time. It's time to replace them, and we have the money for the down payment, and Donnell and I have been able to work it out that if we are fiscally responsible and able to pay down the note each year for the 10 years that we can have it, that will be paid off before these new fields reach the end of their life. And also through rental revenues, I'll have a deposit when it's time to replace them again in another 10 to 13 years.
So if you can take 80,000 out of the trust, how come you can't take more out of the trust?
They're earmarked, so while we could theoretically take more money out of the Recreation Trust Fund, I wouldn't recommend that. There's what I call them sub-account lines in the Recreation Trust Fund. We specifically use the one for the improvements to Maple Grange Park, as well as the one for the reserve for field fees for these down payments.
Because that's how they're set up.
Yes, there are other things that go into the trust fund. I'm sorry?
It's legal to use that money for these turf fields
Yes,
from the trust?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have to anticipate, you'll see, I'll have to anticipate it as a revenue from the trust fund, and then it's going to go into capital improvement. It kind of just moves around. It goes from the revenue, from the trust fund into the current, and then into capital improvement through your budget process.
So why couldn't we take more out of there? I mean, just to bring this down?
You mean to increase your down payment, to bring the bands down, the note
Yes.
down that you would take? There are other items that go into trust. So there are other, like your snowshoe funds go into there.
The community garden.
Yes.
What is the balance of the trust?
Was it one, I don't have the paper on me.
The total balance of the Recreation Trust at the moment is $195,000.
Thank you.
And that's A to Z, everything that's in there. But the other part of the capital that I would like you to consider is at Veterans Memorial Park. It does not have a lighting system as it does at Maple Grange, so that limits the use of the park. The lights that are there are outdated, not set up properly for what the park is intended for at all. It really would require a whole new electric service. So included in this, the next line there, the $47,707 from trusts, would be for a lighting system down at Veterans Memorial Park. And as Donnell and I have gone over it, by lumping the two of those together into one capital expenditure, it extends the life.
So
Yes,
do you
yeah.
expect to draw down on the trust fund yearly to pay?
Yearly?
But
No,
when you're paying the bond down,
no.
And
can
one-
you?
Oh, sorry.
No, just,
No, you wouldn't have enough money to be able to do that. So it
well,
would
I
be
guess
my.
I guess what I'm going at is maybe we should be looking at a number, I guess, knowing you're taking things out for other items, like where would that number be? What could we do if we were able to draw down on the trust fund yearly to pay off? Because, it's no secret that we're,
Well, like I said, for the field fees, I would be very conservative and say $5,000. Like I said, it's been higher in other years, but I like to be conservative with those numbers. I don't want to tell you 8,000 and then you only get 5,000. So I think it's important to be conservative with that. So I worked it out with Michelle that if we did $5,000 a year and we accumulated $5,000 a year in that trust, moving forward for the reserve for field fees, that once these fields, after we replace them in 15 years, 14, 15 years, we will have replenished the money that we took out
would hope
plus
to have more.
some.
That's.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Right.
we would hope to have more,
Well-
to then pay for the next down payment. I think we've collected enough now since the last time they were done.
What's
that
the life of the field usually?
10 to 13 years. And the upper ones were put in the end of 2005, I believe. So we're in our 14th year.
Yeah, 2005 was a great year for spending.
And I will say the GMAX tests, when we were talking about the numbers, I looked at the results. And the one from 2 years ago, when she said it increased 30 points, I mean, the highest you can get is 160. And I think the prior one, it only increased like 10 points or something. So the more degraded the fields are, the more destroyed they are, the faster they go.
Right.
And we did speak about this, and the concern is if we don't do a GMAX test between now and the end of the year, and something happens, and then they do a GMAX test afterwards, after something happened, that's not,
But the big liability on us.
yes.
I mean,
But I'm also working very closely with all the sports leagues now in opening up the schedules a little bit more, fine-tuning exactly what times they need on the field, so that there's a little bit more room to rent them out instead of them being blocked out completely, for every daylight hour into the night where there's lights. And just this week alone, I've had requests from 3 other organizations for field time for March, just for March. So, most likely in March, we'll bring in $2,000 in field revenue by me being able to rent them out. But as they degrade, I won't be able to continue doing that either for liability reasons.
I mean, this would have been a great thing to put on the ballot, I mean,
And although,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
although Mad Dog rents these fields, I have suggested that we raise the fees to rent the fields by as
Now,
much as
that would be the other thing.
25%.
In accordance with getting new fields, that's the perfect time to do it. Redo the ordinance, because it isn't an ordinance, and raise the rental fees to,
Has the fee been steady for the last few years?
it's
never
been steady
changed.
since I've been employed here.
It's never changed, and I always felt it should have been raised, but again, I've been keeping out of
DPW.
this. We will be much more expensive. Jefferson, we rent the fields for 2 hours for $75. Here, it's 1 hour for 70, and I think it should be increased to at least $100
an hour.
An hour.
So
When the
what is
lights
it
go on,
now?
you even pay more money.
What is it now?
So what is it now?
Right now, it's $75 per hour without lights, $125 with. So, and then also with the Veterans Park, which Little League is working with me right now, to hopefully be able to apply for a grant that if we were to get it, Scott's Lawn Company would completely redo an entire ball field for us with everything, dugout, scoreboard, infield, sod, bases. So that just would be wonderful. So we're working hard to be able to do that as well. All for improving the services and giving the youth something to do. Because if we close the fields,
Do the Board of Ed use these fields at all?
the Board of Ed and I work together. We use each other's fields, and we share in certain maintenance things of each other's fields.
So do they share in the maintenance of our town, our fields?
They do.
Do they pay towards Maple Grange?
They do certain things at Maple Grange for us, whether it's a grooming, a relining, new nets for the goalposts, soccer goals.
What about their share to this turf?
Well,
We use all of their fields as
We use all
well.
their high school fields as well.
And their turf,
They're not turfed, right?
they have a turf field, yes.
They have turf?
And their turf will be due to be replaced in the next 2 years at most probably, as well as our third turf field at Maple Grange. So hopefully we keep communicating where we can get a good offer from the bidding company to do both those fields at once if it works out, which again, the reserve money, we have to hold on to a little bit of that, anticipating the third field needing to be replaced. And one more thing, though, in the trust for recreation, one of the trusts alone is for the field deposits, because I collect a deposit from anyone who uses, but it's refundable. So we can't use that because at the time that whatever entity it is stops using our fields, they can request back their field deposit if we didn't need it for damages. And then another line item is specifically for the community garden, which the members of the garden pay each season into that trust for improvements only for the garden. So there's two line items in there that come to approximately $20,000, $22,000 that can't be used for anything else at all.
So how much did the trust bring in this year?
Which,
That would be something I can get you the numbers on that.
The trust itself, she's just saying.
Yeah, how much did we bring in?
well, I only have in front of me what the total is right this
Yeah.
moment, not last year to this year. So
Yeah, she only has my trial balance in front of her. I can get you the numbers on the actual money that came into the trust, but they're not revenues. So I want to make that clear. If you were going to use, I believe the council president mentioned using money from the trust to offset, the cost of the debt service that we would be moving forward with if we took out this note, you could do that, but you would set up a new line of revenue, whether it was field fees, something like that, would be set up as an actual revenue. The concern with setting it up as a revenue is that that revenue could be used to offset the cost of
it wouldn't be.
anything. It would be in the regular.
It wouldn't
the
be in like a
regular
field
budget.
basket. It would be in the big basket. And then when it came time for field needs, the last major repair for the fields, I believe, was almost $10,000. So again, the more they deteriorate now from going forward, the faster they're going to deteriorate further. So we can spend the money to Band-Aid them and not even get them up to par, or we can spend the money to replace them and go forward. That's where they pretty much are at.
This walkway around the flats, to the right, it says open space walkways.
That would be something in the whole plan for the open space money that I hope we can include in there, because APT Paving donated the partial walkway that got put in last year. So the hopes would be to continue it around to the other end, to connect both parking lots of the flats with an ADA paved walkway for people to go from one end of the park to the
So
other.
is this money out of the open space?
It's not, it's the
That's what
the
it would be-
suggestion.
It would be, so in my discussions with the mayor, we spoke about open space funds, and obviously, that anything that would be spent out of open space would come before you. And regarding the capital plan, these are the requests, and it's a plan, but it's not set in stone. So just
Okay, but
because we
that's,
have,
my simple question is, this proposal is taking the money out of the open space?
it would use, yes, if you approved it, yes. And then it would have to be approved after the adoption, obviously, it would have to be approved via capital ordinance in order to do those two items.
The other thing the council should be aware of, too, in the future for open space money is the track around Maple Grange. You see the alligatoring, the edges now are starting to crumble. That also will have to be redone, if not next year, the next year, because it gets so much use. But you're seeing the cracks all through the pavement down. That's got to be 10 or 12 years now also. John, do you remember how long ago that was?
At least that long.
At least, right?
Right.
I guess it might be 2005 also.
And by resealing it, that would extend its life to not having to be completely repaved.
Was there ever an improvement made where the drain is, because it always kind of floods when it rains? Like right by the parking lot? there was
That's
a-
what that was made for. It's just like the detention pond over by the,
Yeah, I know, but I think it sunk even more.
well, it's basically built in a swamp over there, so it will.
I can,
Yeah, I would- no, I was just
when we get
mentioning,
to.
'cause I know that there were-
Where we can do,
Yeah.
do repairs around the track, we can look into that as well.
I
Well,
just
thing-
remember there being public, people that use it said that it was always an issue of,
Right, it
Just-
forms a very large puddle.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I know the one you're speaking of.
yeah.
And the wear and tear on the walkway, at first, we didn't have the smaller gator to clean off the walkway, so you had a mason dump going in there to clean off the trail at Maple Grange. So, there's a walking trail built for that, not for the truck to go in there all the time and clean it off. So now with that smaller machine, they are able to clean it off. So, to redo it, should be able to maintain it better now.
Right, it would have a longer life
Yeah,
even than it had
because you
now.
just have the gator on there with a blade cleaning it off as opposed to
And the
it.
people do, they call when it snows. They're calling like by 10 a.m. Is the pathway cleared yet?
Yeah.
Like, oh, they're still out plowing your roads, but we're getting there.
So this would be added to the additional that we just approved possibly for this.
It would be above that 185. There's actually like 960 in the open space. We gave the one part of the fund, but there's also, for some reason, it was divided by interest, and I forget what the interest account is, maybe 120
143,000.
there. So it would come there, and would still put us well below the 30% of the 960. But again, it has to come before the council again to see if you want to use that money to complete the trail around veterans, and do you want to seal the one in Maple Grange, other than putting it in capital. But, I would suggest that wait till the budget process is over and how you want to move on that, so we could do that.
So you're not going to include this then in this budget then? You're saying?
We can remove it, but I'm just trying to get a discussion
Well,
going
it's in the
here.
plan for capital expenses and major improvements through my department. It's part of the plan. And then it's up to you whether you approve one piece, two pieces, all of it. I'm not necessarily a revenue department. It's more about a service to the community and providing assets for the town, for the community to use.
Yeah, to
Just
me,
an
the
option.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
John. No, go ahead.
To me, that was part of that referendum of the open space, was to use the money for maintenance of what we have already, and like the, putting in that, redoing the walkway over in Maple Grange. And we used to have the walkway that connected from the one lot.
To the other,
To the
right,
other.
and it keeps people off the road.
Yeah.
And part of my own personal goal is to bring back, to say, the flats, to be another highlight of Vernon. It used to be the place to go when you have young children. And there's a regrouping going on with all the sports leagues because their needs have changed. So the more we can bring to Veterans Park, the more we can help with softball and Little League and what all their needs are to be able to continue with being able to have the sports in town. Any other questions?
Nope.
No?
I think we're good for now.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Next up, we have fire prevention, emergency services.
That's tab 17 if you.
Yep, we have it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, before we go over the list, we'll talk about my department. For the calendar year of 2018, office did 1,585 inspections, up from 1,452 last year. Okay, moving on to the sheet. Everything is pretty much the same. I'm not asking for much here. If you want to go down line by line. Office supplies, 300, keep it the same. Education, conference and seminars, 750, keep it the same. Fire prevention materials, supplies, up that to 7,500. That's the printed material for the fire prevention program in the schools. Okay, so that's all the things that we give out to the kids. Work zone safety, we left at 500. Computer service, we upped a little bit to 3,100 from 2,000 in the event that we were going to get tablets for the inspectors to do inspections online in the field. And we were going to give tablets to the fire chiefs. So when they pull in front of a building, they can access my office and my database, and they have all the information on that building in front of them when they're on scene. Uniform turnout gear, we left the same at 1,000. Membership and publications, we upped a little bit because of memberships that we use as a fire prevention bureau. Down to salaries, if you look under part-time inspector, we were approved last year for 20,000. I'm looking to up that by 3,000 because I'm looking for an extra day for my part-timer Paul because the work volume is there. So I can use him an extra day with the amount of inspections we've been doing.
So how many hours does your part-timer work since we have this?
He works 2 days, 14 hours.
14 hours in the 2 days?
Yeah.
If I can interject here too, if we go forward with the short-term rental ordinance, the Airbnbs, this will also be increasing inspections. It's one of the reasons I want to have not just the revenue, these are going uninspected, smoke alarms, et cetera, and they really should be inspected. By law, I mean with the ordinance, they have to be inspected.
So he works 14 hours in those 2 days, so how many additional hours does this work out?
One more day, so it would be what, 21?
Total?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on my side. On the bottom, I guess we'll go to the fire departments and the ambulance corps.
Well, just before you,
Yeah,
before
I
you,
got something to
oh,
say.
I was gonna say,
Go ahead.
before you go with the spatial data, is this also have anything to do with getting the applications online for smoke certificates?
No, this is separate. This is accessing my inspection database.
Okay, and
Be able to go mobile with it is
Right.
essentially what it is.
is that something that is actually in the works?
I've spoken to Spatial Data about it. They're supposed to be coming out with that this year. June actually was the date they gave me.
Okay. It's just so everyone's aware, it's just to have the applications online, so if you're selling your home, you can go online and complete the application. Usually, a portion of that you have to check with the building department to make sure you don't have any open permits, which that's already been activated, so people that are, and it's really easy to use.
Yeah.
You know, that you can actually access that, and you hopefully can pay for it, so people, it's a little inconvenient for somebody to have to take off work to come here, you know, to pay their $70 to fill out an application.
Right.
So that's the whole purpose of it. Thanks.
All right, on the volunteer department side, I have 2 grants that I wrote that I'm waiting to hear on. One's for $400,000 for a new tanker truck. The other one's for $212,000 for equipment for the fire departments, various things. All right, so the money that we give to the 4 fire departments, there's no increase there. It's still at 33.5. Same thing with the ambulance corps. So then that'll drop us down to line 290, which will be equipment repair and maintenance. We'll be allocating 40,000. Just so I can explain that, that would be your maintenance of your fire trucks. So the DPW takes care of the mechanical side of repairs out of their budget, and the 40,000 is for repairs on the fire side. Your fire pumps, anything that's fire related that has to be certified.
So you all know is hoses have to be recertified, ladders, everything.
Well, that we're actually doing under the next line,
Okay.
fire mandate. All right, so that's your fire hose testing, like you're saying, your pump certifications, all of that. The clothing allowance stays the same. And then on the bottom line, that's the money I guess we're going to allocate for Scott Packs and the turnout gear.
It's in the capital.
That would be the only capital improvement project we're looking for. I did get a request from the Fire Chiefs Association looking for 4 chiefs' cars. A couple of years ago, some escapes, 4 escapes were bought for the 4 firehouses. They're deputy chiefs' cars they bought on their own and maintain themselves. I guess most of them are in disrepair, so what they're looking to do is get 4 chiefs' cars and then step down the Ford Escapes that they have now to deputy chiefs' cars. That's a request from the Fire Chiefs Association.
Question I have on this clothing allowance, was there anything paid out last year?
Yes, it didn't get updated yet. We did pay out, I believe we have 10,000 left. But that's still available, so if there are individuals who did not submit for their allowance, we can still pay that out.
Because it's not on, our last year's did not have what was charged, obviously. And now it's not, in this 17 is not on our chart
Oh,
at all. So-
I'll have to update that page for you. I must have taken the wrong column and hit it.
So we had asked, we had talked about last year, they were talking about getting a washer and dryer,
Yes.
and that was going to be put off to this year. Did it get put off again?
I put in for it,
Okay,
yeah. That's like a $10,000.
yeah.
Expense.
I know what they've been going through trying to get turnout gear out,
Right.
and spending.
Well, what we did
spending
do,
on
you
it.
did by resolution, was the cleaning service, Minerva, and 5,000 was set aside for that.
Yeah. This would be handy to have it in-house, you know that. I know.
It's cheaper. Where I come from, we had it
Convenient,
in-house,
you know,
and
somebody dropping it off, getting it picked up.
absolutely, yeah. It gets a little pricey when they start doing repairs. That number goes up real quick.
Yeah.
Where is those cars? I don't see it in the capital.
They're not in the capital plan.
Where are they?
They're not in the capital plan.
We had removed those cars because we were looking for a asset management plan, and I don't want to replace any vehicles unless they're absolutely broken down and can't use them and they're a safety hazard. 'Cause
And
it's for the assistant chiefs, right?
And
Yes.
the grant that you said you applied for, that's not in here?
The cars? No.
No.
Oh, the grants I wrote already.
Okay, yeah, but there's
The
nothing
road,
in
I
this-
submitted
nothing in
them.
this reflecting anything.
I did not put those in there. We had them in the last year's capital plan, and we have to actually amend a bond ordinance regarding one of those. But I didn't put them in there. If we get the grants, we can do a Chapter 159 and amend it and put in and then get those vehicles. That's fine, but
If the council wants to put them back in, but I stress we need the air tanks and the packs. Because we don't want to happen, when I first became mayor, there was no plan to replace these. Now, they're good for the tanks, what, 12, 15 years?
15 years shelf life.
But I really believe we should start building an inventory and replacing them as we're going, so it doesn't happen again. Get to where you're going to spend maybe $100,000 a year, instead of all of a sudden you have to spend $700,000.
Right, actually, what we did, though, is we bought used bottles.
Yes, and they're going to have to be
Right, so
replaced.
they still have to be cycled out over the next 12 years, 13 years.
It's easier to spend a little at a time than just getting this big payment that we have to do. This way, our firefighters are always having current certified equipment.
How much has fire prevention brought in fines this year?
Fines, I only fine people for compliance. For registration fees,
Just how much, for any.
Between
anything that
130,
you
140,000.
would pay a penalty for.
Excuse me, what was that?
registration fees. I don't do fines unless I'm looking for compliance.
In other
Well,
words,
how much for all the,
Registration fees, between 130, 140,000,
so that's what you brought in registration fees.
yes.
So where does that money go?
General fund.
they're revenues in our current fund.
So is there anybody that's not compliant? Because you say you don't have fees come in only if you're trying to
You can only
get,
penalize somebody if you're looking for compliance.
and there hasn't been any this year.
Well, right now, we'll be having a case on the Northwoods, and they're looking at fines well over $100,000.
And
They've
what
already
was-
been fined over almost 700, right? 682 or something
Yeah.
on the building side of it, but now we're going to be going after the fire side of it.
So what is there?
And there's a dedicated trust fund for the penalty fees that come in, and those are supposed to, I spoke with Lou about it, they're supposed to be specifically used for fire-related things. So the department,
For fire-related.
fire-related or, yeah, like the fire department items.
So if any fines come in from that, that'll be
Fines
set
for those go
aside?
into, yeah, they go specifically into the dedicated trust for penalties.
And I think maybe, are you speaking of if, when they go out and do inspections, if they find something that's not proper, do they fine for that?
Oh, I don't know.
No,
That's what I'm
because
just
I know,
asking.
well, because I think what happens normally if they go out, let's say, to a business and there's something that maybe is not in compliance, they give them an opportunity to actually be in compliance. It's not just a policing where you just walk in and say, well, here's your fine.
We always try to get voluntary compliance, like a notice of a violation, doesn't mean they're going to get a summons.
Right.
But when they refuse to comply.
When they go
bring them up to
back,
code,
right.
Then we have no choice but to issue a summons and bring them before a court.
Kind of like if,
But-
if an exit door is blocked, you know, you can't block an exit door, and they go back and it's still blocked, you know, now they're not in compliance. So usually, people act on it immediately because,
You have to give them 30 days right off the bat,
Yeah.
and then past that, it's up to the fire official to deem how much time to permit them. I don't have a problem in this town.
do you have any other questions? I have a question. Might be a sore subject. But is there, I'd heard something about maybe the old fire truck, something, is that going to be sold? Or was it the ladder truck, whatever?
445.
We don't know what we're going to do. I mean, could we go ahead and sell it? Yes, we could, but I'd still like a report. What's an asset management plan? How is it going to get done? Do we really need it? Because I got mixed signals. At one time, I'm being told no by 3 out of 4. Now we all need it, so I need some kind of plan. I don't want to
Think she's-
sell it. if
Are
we
you
get
talking
the
about
fee.
McAfee's old ladder truck, or are you
Yeah.
talking
Yeah,
about the Vernon?
McAfee's got to be sold.
Yeah, I'm not
It should
talking
have been
about,
figured in
yeah.
the specs when they were buying the truck, and it wasn't, so now that's going to have to go out for auction.
Okay, so when that goes out for auction and it's sold, depending on what would happen with that money?
Becomes, well, it would become unanticipated revenue, and it just becomes our revenue. It would
But if
most
it was-
likely, as long as all of our revenues meet our numbers, it would most likely just fall
If it was
into our-
traded, if it had been traded in initially,
You would've got more money.
Yes.
you know,
Too late
we
for a
would
trade.
have got more money for it.
Oh, absolutely, because they wanted to make the deal on a new one. So they would have get, instead of getting pennies on the dollar, you would have made more money on that, had it been done that way.
I mean, what you could do is if that is sold and that money comes in as an unanticipated revenue, you could always anticipate, what would happen is it's going to close out to fund balance. You could anticipate a little bit more in fund balance in the next year, and then put that, earmark it as a line item in capital if you wanted to start, kind of like a specific capital reserve for a fire truck. So that over the years, you can say, okay, we're going to put in an extra $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 a year, so that when we get to that point, when we need a new fire truck, we have either a very substantial down payment or we pay for it in cash.
So if that's done, can anybody in future years just go ahead and grab that money and use it for something else?
You're not, when you set up a reserve for a specific line item, you can only use it for that line item.
I'm just, because that's something that's
I mean, I would like to see that start going towards these tanks and stuff.
Tankers,
And
yeah.
to set up a separate reserve or a trust fund, so say in year 2023 or 2025, that is building up, so we don't always have to go out for these bans, and then you got to worry about the bonds, 10, 12 years down the road.
I mean, personally, I'd like to see if the fire truck is sold, that it, somehow that money stay.
The fire department.
Yeah, and that's
Within the fire
definitely
department.
something
Agreed.
that I would recommend, that you use that money and you put it aside, and then you build on it, so that when you need a new one, you have those funds available.
How come we have here 2016 for comparison reasons, then it jumps to 2018?
That's what
Yeah,
I just.
I
that's what I
missed.
said, when I said that the column was missing for 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I asked about the clothing allowance, we didn't have the number of what was actually charged.
Yeah, but just
So-
going back now, are all of them missing 17?
No, most of them are in there.
No,
Oh, okay, just that one.
no, just
All
that
right.
one.
So just so I'm clear, and I agree with this, and I'm hoping this is what the council's at, when we sell a fire apparatus or sell a truck, we set up a dedicated account to replace future equipment. We keep it out of the general budget, and let's put it towards future purchases for the fire department.
I mean, personally, I think
that's what I'd like to
that's
see
what it
done.
should
Well,
be, because,
Yeah, that
but,
sounds-
Thing is, you have to see what they're gonna give you for a trade-in purchasing.
Right?
And if that offsets, that's probably a little more likely to offset, because they're gonna give you more just to get the deal done. Then you have an auction here, you can have somebody come in and say, ain't nobody else gonna bid on it, I'll give you $500, I'll give you $100 on it. Some of the, like I've talked to you with the 2 tankers, those trucks being they're already paid for by Vernon, we could easily reuse those for the DPW as just as well as train them in. I mean, as their fire service life has expired, but they have still a long life over there for whether they were made into a dump truck or still made into a tanker for doing the storm drains. So you just have to see where the more use you're going to get. You probably trade in, you're going to get a lot more value out of it, but those 2 vehicles, if they're being able to replace this year, would definitely be worth keeping over there. But that's what you just have to weigh out, in my opinion.
is there another town partner that we could partner with that's buying a fire truck? We can say, can you trade in our truck? Just saying, I mean,
I don't know.
I,
I'm not in the fire circle,
no, but,
John.
But, I mean, I realize what you're saying is if you're trading something in, well, then obviously you're going to do that so you get the better deal. But if you were getting money in on something, I would think it would go to a dedicated fund, so then we're not always looking for money, for emergency
Well,
services.
it's just that if money is dedicated for that item, it has to stay for that item.
That's why I asked.
There's been lots of 5-year, 10-year plans, but if they don't go by them, it doesn't matter how many years down the road, because you didn't go by it, so.
That's been the problem, because somebody always puts their hands where they don't, never mind. Any other questions? Do you have any other?
No, thank you.
And the last thing I think we have here is, so this remaining balance of the 80,000 for the part-time paid ambulance.
Didn't we take that out?
That's out, right? I just wanted to bring that up, since we're the ones looking at this. I don't have anything else.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are you up next? Did you maybe want?
I need to be in the middle because I have to work the recorder.
Oh, okay.
I can't get the beginning or end or.
I was just trying to accommodate Dave.
It's okay.
He can go after Warren.
Yeah, no, that's fine, he is, doesn't matter, like I said.
So for the clerk's office, for 2017 to 2018, the Number of resolutions was 228 in 2017 and went to 257 in 2018. Ordinance introduced.
Okay.
Oh, I'm tab number 7. Ordinances that were introduced was 17 in 2017, 30 for 2018. Oprah requests filed 646 in 2017, 725 in 2018. Certified copies, we went from 119 to 1,075, but the thing that to be recognized is that marriage certified copies went from 324 to 424. Typically with death certificates, people order around 10 at a time, so we're just printing 10, but with marriage certificates, it's 1 or 2. So 100 increase in the marriage certificates is a substantial amount of additional people coming in, about 50 extra people being serviced. Also new for this year, in 2018, is for the first time we did vacant property registrations. We had 194 vacant properties for last year. And also new for last year, our office handled the charitable roadside solicitations, which is 4. So it's just information about where things are moving in the office. For our budget, I will start at the office operating expenses. Office supplies is our typical everyday expenses, pens, pencils, pads, filing items. As you know, we generate a lot of paper. You get agenda packets that are rather large, so that's the cost of those paper clips and things that come with it. Education and seminars is the cost for us, myself and the deputy registrar. Both are required to be licensed by the state of New Jersey. We are required to attend classes for a certified municipal registrar. I'm also required to be a registered municipal clerk. That's the cost offset for those classes. Myself and the deputy registrar work very hard to not attend classes that cost money. We try and go to online webinars and less expensive classes. The Sussex County Clerks Association puts out 2 classes a year that the cost is around $25 a person, as opposed to the hundreds that it is when you go through some of the other vendors that offer courses. And so we try and do those and the free classes rather than the cost. That's why the amount that we charge is a significant savings. I budget, though, to, in the event that, because I cannot control whether they're going to continue to give free classes, so we budget for the amount that's there. Materials and supplies, that is the cost of our permanent items, ordinances, resolutions. Our marriage licenses are all permanent records. They're required to be on special certified paper that's museum quality to prevent them from deteriorating over time. So then 200 years, someone can still be able to read those documents as they are permanent. So that is the line that we use to cover those expenses to get those items. Advertising, I have again asked for a reduction. If you recall, in 2016, the council was kind enough to allow me to stop advertising our ordinances in full twice. Under state statute, we only are required to advertise them at title. And in the past, we were advertising them by in full as introduction and advertise again an adoption. In 2016, we decided that to save funds, we would advertise it in full upon introduction so everyone could read it. We also have it posted on our website, and then adopt it. When we adopt it, just advertise it by title only, which is what we have been doing. As you can see, we have been realizing a significant amount of savings, because even with the fact that we introduced 30 ordinances last year as opposed to 17 the year before, we still were able to save money. Our advertising was actually cheaper than it was in 2016 when we advertised in full. Election supplies, I don't know if everyone recalls, but in August of this past year, Governor Murphy signed an initiative that says that everyone who has applied for an absentee ballot is automatically entitled to an absentee ballot for every future election unless they opt out. There's 2 major issues with that. First off, 2016, when they did that, was an election year, so a lot of people requested absentee ballots that normally didn't. The second issue is that New Jersey is a closed primary state. What that means is that we have a Republican primary and a Democratic primary, which means only Republicans or only Democrats can vote in those primaries. However, New Jersey has a large amount of independent voters. So because now everyone who's ever asked for an absentee ballot is now entitled to an absentee ballot for every election going forward. For all independent candidates that are not registered Republican or Democrat, they will be sent 2 absentee ballots for the primary, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat. If they choose to vote either one, they will be considered declared. If they do that, then in the future they'll only get 1, but it might be likely that once they realize that they're declared, they come in and file a change of party affiliation form to go back to being independent. This is going to significantly drive the cost of our election expenses. Jeff Paradise said he had over 9,000 absentee ballots in 2016, and about 1,500 of those were for Vernon Township. So that means that we're going to have all the additional printing costs associated with those absentee ballots, and then all the additional postage costs. Postage just went up to, I think, 50 cents a ballot, so that's $750 just in postage. And then when you think about the primary with independents, that could be $1,500 just in postage alone.
One of the things, because I was actually at the Freeholder meeting when he was speaking the other day, is that the way to eliminate this or to decrease it is for people to opt out.
Yes, and a letter was sent out by his office, and we do have it posted.
I just wonder, is there any way that we could maybe post that online someplace?
It is posted
Is it posted?
on the county's website, and we have a link.
Because he
So-
said the other thing that happens is if people show up to go vote, they have to use a provisional. They have to vote by provisional because they won't be allowed to vote if they've been mailed the absentee ballot.
And I made it a point at the election in November to print out those opt-out forms and have them in the polling places and put them in their bags so that everybody was getting them. So if people were coming to the counters and going and voting and saying, oh, I didn't want to be that, I made sure we sent them out of our office as well. I put 5 in every district, just to make sure that if people didn't want to be a mail-in ballot, because sometimes people just are traveling. They don't need to be a mail-in ballot every year, but it just automatically, going forward, you're a mail-in ballot. So
So I know you had said, what, 2016, if you were asked for
Right.
a mail-in, you continue with it. So if somebody now, if I ask for a mail-in ballot, will I get one every year then?
you'll get one from going forward. But they actually now have the question on the form that will say to you, is it just one time? Do you want it? So they did have that question in the past, but the way Governor Murphy wrote the law, it was just everything forever. It was interesting because he signed it in 2018, and he said it's anyone who voted absentee in 2016. What happened to the voters in 2017? The way most counties, including ours, interpreted that is that 2017 gets an absentee ballot also automatically. The next expenses are contracted services. That's our transcription services. As you see, we budgeted the same amount, depends on the cost of that. Codification of ordinances, the amount, that's the cost of making the code. The code estimate for last year is approximately $8,000. Because we did have so many ordinances, that money has been incurred. I have requisitioned it. It just has not been expended because the codifier is working on the codification through the end of the year, but they did give me an estimate. So hopefully, we'll see what the cost is. I estimated for $6,000 because 30 was an aggressive amount last year, more than we had done in previous years. So we put that to the side. We've also tried to get an initiative which you all passed on, reorganization. Thank you again for the shared service agreement with the county. The county has a RIM system, which is a records information system that allows them to scan the records, and then anyone can search those records. Similar to how our website works with minutes and resolutions where you can type in keywords. But the way it would work is everything that they scan would be able to be found. And I've been working with the county and for the last several years, and so have other municipalities, trying to get the county to include the towns themselves in their scanning, because they have full-time employees. Initially with the scanning project from the Paris grant, they worked on getting all of the county's records scanned, and that's how our county health department records are available online. So our hope is to try and do the same thing for the minutes and resolutions, because that would be a great resource to be able to find what happened in the past with just the typing of a few words. Also potential in the future for the building department records, because those are life of the structure records, so that's what we would want to do. It's not meant for things that are just day-to-day records, it's meant for building records that are permanent in nature. So minutes, resolutions, ordinances, building department records, land use board records, these are permanent records that you'd want to try and have scanned. So we set aside some money for that to be done for the future. We haven't gotten a price back from the county. Your council did pass the resolution for them to explore it and get back to us, so that is the hope for that. The other item we have is membership publications. That is our Westlaw, which is our New Jersey statutes annotated, League Magazine, and those are contractual items. I think the remaining balance doesn't include the last quarter. We also have computer software support, and we have an opportunity to go forward with, there's several different companies that put through online software to manage your budgets and, manage your minutes, resolutions, agendas, to make it an online service instead of each department sending an email, and then emails getting printed out, and then getting asked to be put here, and then they're not all approved by every department, so then you walk around and ask still, did you know about this? Did finance know about this? Is the certification of funds done? Is this okay with administration? It just loads everything into one program, and then each department that needs to review it gets to look at it, check it off, and then it puts it onto the agenda. So it's just a smoother program. At this time, I don't know if we'll be able to go forward with that, particularly if the cost of the election expenses, because now they're getting some real numbers and are very concerned that our postage is going out. Not as many people opted out, as my understanding, as they had anticipated. So that is our operating expenses. Is there any questions on that?
Have any questions on that?
Not on operating expenses, no.
Okay, then on salary expenses, just so, for some of our newer council members, in the past, the township's clerk's office, since I started in 2014, we had one full-time employee, two full-time employees, myself and an assistant, and then we had a part-time employee. The part-time employee was in the floater program. They were paid for out of the administration budget under the mayor's office, so they weren't included in my budget as a salary. In 2017, they were moved that person over halfway through 2017. It was about mid-year, about July. They ended the floaters as people retired. The people that were in the floating positions were moved into permanent positions, and they ended the floater condition altogether. And they added the money into my budget, into salaries under there. So that's why you see the difference from 2016, and it goes up and goes up. It's because 2016 to 2018, 2017 was half of a year of that floater staff, and then 2018 is the whole year having it. The raises that are included in there are the union contract wages raises. The one thing that I had requested is for the deputy registrar. When she came on board, she was not required to be a certified municipal registrar. The state of New Jersey has changed that law and requirement, so she was required to go and take her courses and get a certified municipal registrar license, which she has obtained, and she's now been working with that license for over a year and a half, and so I had requested a $1,000 increase for her for that money. On the line, she's the administrative assistant, and just so you can see where her salary ends up, that's because the 37 reflects the annual increase, and then they get a step increase, and then on their anniversary date, and hers is at the end of the year, December, they get their anniversary increase, and that's per the union contract. So that's why at the end of the year, that is the figure.
You have any questions?
Yeah, so how many hours does your part-time administration assistant?
My part-time person works 4 hours a day, and Monday through Friday, 5 hours, 4 hours, 5 days a week. So, and also handles, one of the things that we need assistance with has been elections. So the election day, as I'm sure you're aware, the clerk's office has to be open at 5 a.m. We're open until 9 p.m. We have to be full staffed or staffed the entire day. In the event that there is an issue, we have had in the past people who have fallen at the polling places, broken their ribs, various different injuries, which cause us to have to leave the office, so I need to have somebody behind to staff. So to have someone staffing 14 hours, that's also when we have relied upon our full-time or part-time person to be in for a longer day. And then also to cover vacations and sick time when necessary.
So now, going back to the stipend. So for registrar, the increase is because she got a state certification?
The increase is because she got a state certification and also to reflect the experience. When she came, when in the previous registrar and deputy registrar, the stipends were identical. We both received the same amount of money. Then it was determined at the time that we were going to get a new deputy, that because she didn't have the registrar experience and she did not have the certification, that the salary was going to, the stipend was actually cut in half. So she received half of what the last deputy registrar received. But at this point, she has as much experience, actually more experience than the deputy registrar that you were paying the amount to.
And
So
did we pay for the person to go?
you're paying her $5,000.
We paid $5,000 for them to become certified?
Oh, the cost for the certification? No, it's no charge for the classes. It's just their time because they have to go to the courses. In the past, they used to offer them online, and now they're in Trenton, so they had to go to Trenton every day to sit
They
there
got
for
paid to
classes.
go,
Well, they
right?
got
And
paid,
we
but
reimbursed their
They were just paid for the
Mileage?
day. Yeah.
they're just paid for the day, yeah,
But there was no cost for the educational side of it.
right.
And even the continuing ed, you
And
can
the
do them
continuing ed, we're
online?
doing it online, and so we're minimizing the cost on that as well.
And we are required to have two.
And
So
what's, oh, go ahead.
we are required to have two.
Yeah, we know that.
So the and then here it says register stipend to 5,300. So that's an increase as well?
I didn't write that.
It's
Is that adding 2% on it?
2%.
Well, it says include raising the stipend to 4,500 from
It's a
35.
That was the
2%
deputy.
increase from what it currently
Oh,
This
is.
is the deputy.
Deputy
And then this
versus,
is the registrar, which is
so why
Lauren.
is hers, it's saying
It's 2% on.
just the 2%?
Right, right.
Okay.
So the deputy, yeah, the one on the bottom is the registrar herself, which is Lauren. So it adds on 2% from the prior year.
So do we always give a 2% to stipends?
We have been.
I know, that just, I don't know why every year we keep on increasing the stipend. I mean, I could see after a few years reevaluating it, but a stipend to go up 2% every year, I don't know.
Well, you can make that in your recommendations.
I will. I discussed the same thing last year.
You- Any other questions on that?
No.
Do you have any?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to do building next, Dave? Sure. Am I next, Bob? We'll move you up.
Good afternoon.
Wait 1 second, are you 22?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
You ready?
Yes.
My budget's pretty much the same as it was last year. We can go over it line item by line item. The first line item ending in 21 for office supplies, I'm leaving that at $1,750. The next line item ending with 23 is education, conferences, and seminars. That's for League of Municipalities and Building Safety Week. I'm leaving that at $1,200. Next line item ended with 24, materials and supplies. That's UCC-related supplies. That's staying at $1,700 also, $1,750 also, from same as last year. The next one is where we get the jump, and that's for the computer services. That's the enterprise system through spatial data. That's going from 6,000 to 9,300, so that's a fixed cost. I can't do anything about that. So that's 9,300 for that. And then the last line item I have is for membership and publications. They didn't adopt the 2018 codes last year, so I gave the majority of that monies back. I'm requesting $2,700 this year for the code books because I'm told that they will be adopted in April, keeping my fingers crossed. So anyway, I need that money for new code books, for the 2018 code books. And that's basically it that comes to a total of $16,700, and that's my budget.
So I see you had a decrease in your budget and a decrease in the salary.
Yes, well, because of the raises, yes. Well, the budget went up basically because of spatial data. Spatial data went up $3,300. I believe that enterprise system is going to work out good for us once it's fully up and running. I'm kind of encouraged about that.
Yeah, we've had some good feedback. I have.
You've had positive feedback?
I've had
Yeah, good,
positive
yeah.
feedback.
We've had about, last time I talked to Mary about it, there's about, I guess, 25 people that have logged on. So, it's going to be a little bit of a slow process, I think, in the beginning, but I think I'm encouraged that it's going to work out pretty good.
Because I've been trying to spread it around the real estate community, because when you do list a house or if you're selling, it's easy to go on there to try to locate whether or not there's permits, because,
And believe it or not, that's, a lot of our telephone calls are for things like that, and then that, if you're answering that question, somebody's looking for an inspection, can't get through. So, like I said, I think it'll take some of the load off the phone call end of it also.
and of course, it's better for them to get on board with whether or not they need a inspection in the beginning of the transaction, as opposed to when they're actually waiting for a fire inspection to come out and they're ready to close in 10 days.
Yeah, well, that's one of the good things about the reoccupancy inspection, all the hanging permits that aren't closed out, the fire, we get them during the reoccupancy. But yeah, we would like to get them on the front end instead of the back end. Yeah.
Yeah, so. You have I do, a part-time employee that's within your budget?
Yeah, but I don't think it's in my,
On here. I don't see it.
it's not on here, right?
The part-time?
Yeah, Karina?
Oh, so you do have somebody part-time?
Well, there again, because of the phone issue, without that third person in my office, the phones are tough, so I really need to keep her.
Well, no, and I just noticed that the person.
Yeah, I don't see her on here, yeah.
So do you have somebody or not?
I
I do, yes, yeah.
I need to check payroll and where it's charged to. It might be charged into administration because of when they were hired, but let me look into that and I'll get
Yeah,
back to
when
you.
they were hired, I thought they were hired for building. They were hired for building, it's they were hired for building, that was part of our.
Well, let me, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, and how many hours
Did she normally work?
do they
She
have?
works 20 hours, I believe, right?
So 5 days a week, or is it?
20 hours. No, she works 5 days a week, they gave her flexible hours, so, but it comes out to about 20 hours a week, yes.
Okay.
And I have no capital this year, and no capital
Well, that's good.
requests. No cars, we're good.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have finance. Tab 8.
I think I could stay here, right? Okay. I'm tab number 8. Okay, so for our O&E lines, our office supplies line did get decreased since we've moved to electronic purchasing. I no longer need to order the expensive vouchers anymore. So that decreased. Equipment rental and maintenance, we will also see a decrease in that line as well. We just went out for a competitive contract for the township. I thought it was in the best interest to try and not only save money, but make us more efficient. So we're going to look at a $17,500 decrease in computer costs over the next 7 years based on that contract. So we'll be saving money there across my department, tax collection, and animal licensing, because it's all inclusive in that software. Education conference seminars, I kept the same. I did receive my certification in December when I passed the test, so I am required to have a certain number of CEUs to keep that certification. Materials and supplies, I did decrease again because of our no need for the purchase vouchers. And usually our toner comes out of that line item. Financial consulting, I did keep the same. That if we need to go out for notes, any issues with our debt, which we can address when we talk about debt and capital, that's the reason why I kept that line item the same. The admin fee, that's actually for the amount that we receive from the outside services. A portion of it goes into here because we handle the processing of those things, so it offsets, it reduces our budget. I based that off of the amount that came in the prior year. You can see that it was charged the 27, so I did increase that a little bit. Membership publications, I did decrease that because I'm only be part of the GFOA. The prior CFO was part of another association. And I kept the payroll the same. And the audit services, which is the next line, I did increase that 2%. That's the price that I discussed with the auditing firm for in the audit for next year. So if you actually look, the amount that was approved in 2018, that will be to pay for their audit services for this year for 2018's audit. So that's why it looks like there's nothing charged. We did get a part of the bill for 2018's audit, so they can begin that. Any questions?
No, but going now, so part-time keyboarding clerk. I see.
That position doesn't exist right now.
So
I currently have, so it's myself and 2 other people that are full-time in the finance department.
So that 18,500 should be removed?
No, that's to have a part-time person to come in and final process vouchers.
Okay, so that part-time keyboarding clerk remains at 18,500.
Yes.
So how
I
many?
just called it a keyboarding clerk. I mean, it would be similar to what they have in building or in tax.
But you don't have that person yet, correct?
Correct.
So we'd be hiring a person for that?
Yes.
We would be.
Or rearranging
But I
duties
thought
somebody
we
else
have
in
a
the building.
hiring freeze. But
Well,
this person doesn't exist yet. Okay, so you're looking to add a part-time keyboarding clerk. Either, now you were saying he'll hire somebody or.
We have to-
Okay, so to just be clear, we've always had 3 full-time people in addition to the full-time chief, we've had 2 full-time people plus the full-time chief financial officer, and we've had a part-time employee.
Mhm.
So I'm actually doing that same thing.
Okay, so you got part-time keyboarding, and how many hours do you think that person will work?
4 a day.
4 hours a day? So 20 hours a week? Okay. So your payroll clerk,
It would be a decrease in salaries of $19,000, a decrease in O&E of $2,300, and a total budget decrease of $20,000.
Well, the senior accounting clerk position, when we received the census, that pay was at 53.5 because there was a change. So this is, so I'll leave it at that, but
so the one full-timer senior accounting clerk is 50,000, and then for, okay, payroll, okay.
because it was, they were moved. They went from part-time to full-time, now to.
But that person's a senior county clerk, that position went to full. We filled the person that retired, correct?
Well, you can read your
So-
email. Yes, but is that individual doing any duties outside of their title?
Yes, we believe so, absolutely. There's no one else in the building that could do those duties.
Which means,
It could, like I've said before, it could have civil service come in and do a desk work,
so when,
but there's no one else in the building to do those duties.
So why
Every
don't-
position,
why
every
don't we
position
fill-
here that is in a civil service position has the right to call for a desk audit.
But now, we had a position there. Why, we took somebody out of that position. So why did we do that? Because we did have somebody that could fulfill that role. Am I understanding that correctly?
The more difficult positions of the senior account clerk are going to, I'm sorry, for the,
Said what, not the other?
for Val's position. The more, the
That was the
difficult
person that
positions
retired,
are
right?
now assigned to the, what's her title officially, senior account clerk it was. So she's doing that, and then we want a part-time to do the lesser duties.
So, but we had somebody in there that could do the job.
At part-time, we wanted to move her to full-time. That position was open.
no.
We could
They
move
were-
her into a full-time
So
position.
then why are we not filling it with a, so instead of her now, she's gonna have to go through, like you just mentioned,
Well, no.
that job requires more
No,
expertise.
no. What happened is, it was a part-time position as an accounting assistant, and it was made a full-time position of an accounting assistant. Hello. And then, at
That's what we wanted.
53.5.
There was a request,
And then-
there was a request to council to amend the salary ordinance to make the accounting assistant position a full-time position. That was not accepted, so.
Really? Was that not accepted? No, that was never further discussed. Was it? Any other council members have any input?
To me, it was obvious where we were going.
That was never further discussed. Does anybody have any input on that? Was it?
Well, it seems like we're, like, no, something doesn't sound right to me. We had somebody in the role that could do it, but we moved that person out of the role. So now you still need an assistant accounting,
We need a part-timer.
you need a part-time assistant accounting,
No,
No.
because I'm getting confused between clerk and accounting assistant.
There was an accounting assistant, part-time,
Correct.
that was moved into an accounting assistant, full-time.
Correct.
We never approved, we were in discussion, we hadn't approved that position,
Correct.
and we were still discussing it. And then what happened was that finance administration took that employee and put them into the position that had been vacated December 31st, which we're saying is a lesser level than what the accounting assistant position was.
Right.
Thus could generate
Trigger
a desk audit.
Correct. So if,
And what we were just told is that we turned down that. I don't recall voting.
so now are you going to look for, so you're not filling that assistant accountant?
Correct.
You're not filling that at all?
Right. And I'm
So
not.
your plan is to have somebody full-time, possibly a desk audit and
Well,
whatever?
We're planning on to see what happens with the Mountain Creek bankruptcy agreement. If we can't, if that keeps on stringing on, we're not hiring a new. I'm going to take someone from inside this building to do those, how many hours a week, whether it's going to be 10 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, whatever we can do, and reassign it. If Mountain Creek comes out of bankruptcy, we're going to look to hire a part-timer.
So then, well, that doesn't, then you're taking somebody from another department that's needed in another
That's what it
department?
takes.
So then another department has somebody they don't need?
No, there's going to just be more work. Till we come out of Mountain Creek's.
I realize that, but I'm just saying, is if you can just so easily take somebody and move them from one department to
Well,
another.
no one said it's easy. If We've been looking at this for weeks, in anticipation. It's not going to be easy. But this is what the cards we are till we get Mountain Creek out of bankruptcy, they get themselves out of bankruptcy.
Well, I still say then, why don't we make a senior accounting assistant, not clerk, make that full-time?
That is full-time.
I'm getting, what, that part-time position?
The part-time position
That-
is just a clerical position. It's not a, it's not.
No, I'm talking about the accountant, a senior accountant.
That is a-
Assistant,
that
not
is a-
clerk, not assistant, clerk.
Right.
So I guess you just spoke about that. Why didn't we make that full-time then?
Say that again.
Well, we're saying that
Say that again.
assistant accountant,
The assistant accountant
and then there's a
position.
clerk. There was two, the clerk and the assistant accountant. So why don't we just make an assistant accountant, and that person that fills that role can do everything?
We were in those discussions.
Yeah, so
And you were-
why can't we do that? I was
We-
away, I
You
did
were,
not
you were,
attend.
right, you were not at the executive session when that was discussed.
Right, so then
And we
it's
left-
covered. It doesn't have to do a desk audit, doesn't have to do anything, we would be
And
covered.
we left that executive session with a discussion.
So maybe that's something that
And-
needs to be revisited.
And the next discussion was when I asked if we were receiving that information for the last council meeting, I was told that that employee was moved from the accounting assistant into the vacated accounting senior position.
Yeah, I think
We-
maybe
and you
it's
have an
gotta be
email on that,
revisited.
'cause I
Yeah,
asked.
no, I know
So-
about the move, yeah. I don't know, it doesn't sound,
So,
sounds
so
like we
ne-
could do better.
Well.
Just saying.
have anything else? No. Do you have any?
Oh, no.
I do want to be clear again that there's a $20,671 savings this year, and then an additional $17,500 savings in computer fees that we will be saving for the next 7 years.
But some of the savings basically in the salaries was our former CFO leaving mid-year. So we didn't have that salary.
Oh, yeah, how many months was that?
She left in July, sometime in July. July 3rd, so it was the beginning of July.
That's actually my projected, that's my projected savings. And the numbers are based off of my proposed budget and the approved budget from last year.
Yeah.
So it's not the savings that we had between what was charged and what was proposed. It's the amount that was approved and what was proposed. So when you're, just so that you know, when you're looking through all of these, it's the comparison from last year's approved budget to this year's proposed budget, or those decreases. So there's a $20,000 decrease between the former 2018 approved budget and the 2019 proposed budget. In addition to other monies, because I did take the initiative to go out for a competitive contract for our computer services, because we're using two different software companies between tax and finance and sewer and the online collections. There's actually 3 companies that we use.
Well, I think usually that ends up being the preference of whoever's using those systems, because I know some people like one system and some people like another.
Well,
And
it's not my, I mean,
No, I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying there's some employees that prefer one program over another.
which is why we were using the two,
Right.
technically 3 different
Wish I had another one.
companies to do that. So it was costing us about $12,500 a year between, and it is, part of it was the MUA, so it is between sewer and tax and finance, but that will be decreased to $10,000 a year.
And the 32.5, which is the shared service, is the MUA.
Correct. That's contractual, that was based on their shared service agreements for this year.
So let me ask you a question. So this senior accounting clerk, so every year, what, did it go up? Not much.
That employee retired.
Exactly, but that's what the employee retired at?
No.
Am I correct?
You know, when you're looking at the two lines,
They're reversed.
the amount, yeah, if you reverse those dollar amounts.
That 49.
That 49,
This number?
that individual retired at 49,950.
Oh, okay.
And this one,
Is really that one?
no. This must be the position that was part-time, right? The 37? Was that the assistant
Yes,
counting?
yes.
That's not listed here. So this, I'll go over that later. I'll go over this later with these lines are just incorrect.
The lines are wrong here?
Yeah,
Easily
so
done.
this
It's the
was-
intent.
Yeah, the senior account clerk, if you look, it says 2018 approved. It's not that 36, it's the one below it, 49,950.
And that's the
Was that
position.
salary when
Yeah.
they retired.
So the
That's what it was, but then now this is what it is.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
That's confusing now.
we'll fix
Okay.
this. All right, thank you. And we have mayor, council,
Basically,
have six.
Wait,
Six.
please.
Six and then 13. Oh, right here, you want
Chuck's going to have to go from administrative.
That's not, we're going to do that another day.
Yeah.
I spoke to Chuck about that. Oh,
We good?
yep.
Basically, with the committees, the volunteers, I just cut the GAC committee by $500 and put that into the beautification. There's no increase. Beautification's been increasing, requesting an increase. They've done a great job. They've spent almost every penny we give them. And I spoke to the GAC, and I think they didn't need to pay any secretaries or any expenses. They'll be covered with ANJAC, because a lot of them also are on the Environmental Commission, and that's really just a transfer of $500 from one committee to the other.
What tab are
We
you on?
have, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking
Yeah.
at mayor and council.
They're looking at tab 6, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
That's okay.
sorry.
Commissions
Okay,
and committees.
start again,
13.
sorry.
They're basically all the same,
Okay.
except I took $500 from the GAC and gave $500 to their $500 to beautification. Beautifications, as I said, has been doing a great job. They asked for additional funds to keep the town, clean, and also the town center, the work they're doing. So that's why I did that. There's no increase.
Just a question, historic preservation, I know that they were working on getting a sign. Are they
got-
getting their sign? or-
Yeah, we put through a resolution, I think,
But-
not the last meeting
Right,
before,
but
to
so
do that
they're- And
transfer.
I'm only, because I know Dan Kadish is not here.
Yes,
And I just thought I'd bring that up, so
yeah,
everybody would know.
yes.
Yes.
If anybody watches or whatever, that, where the sign, yeah. Oh, by the way, in the Arts Committee, it is nice to see all the different pictures in the hallway, to at least be able to, look at some of them out there.
And we want to get even more moving in, so. I think Bruce
Yeah.
Young, he organized all that, and I think he did a great job. He did it in a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we welcome the artist coming in. We had another artist ask if he can display some of his work, and we said absolutely.
Great. Do you have any questions on that, Ted?
No, it doesn't look really like anybody's using any money. When you look at the whole.
But
No.
yeah, I mean, you'll see in historical, they'll use theirs. Economic Development wants to do some more studies. Last year, what they just did was on the internet studies. They spent very, very little money. They know they don't have much to work with, and they're really trying to save every penny they can.
Yeah, just that one.
Okay, and then tab 6.
Nothing changed.
Same. I'm sorry you didn't get a pay raise this year. Neither did I.
Any questions from anyone?
Not done, wait.
No, that's
Just give me a
fine.
minute, if you would. No, I'm good with that.
And just,
No questions, rather.
we're scheduling our next budget meeting on the 25th at 6 PM prior to the council meeting. And figured if Lynn is available, the tax assessor's office, if she could come in first. And then we would have police and animal control only on that day. So, and if Lynn's not available, that, we can put her in another time. And the only reason we really need is because of the reval. So, other than that, anything else? Draft public comment. May I have a motion to open public
Motion.
comment? Yeah. I'll make this, we have first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step forward, have any comments?
There's a little kid coming in.
Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Are there any council comments? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.